In a bustling city in the United States, a determined black lawyer named Vanessa Monroe had earned a reputation for being fiercely intelligent, passionate, and unyielding in the face of adversity. As a child, she'd witnessed the struggles her family had faced due to systemic racism, and it was this experience that fueled her desire to fight for justice. Now, at the height of her legal career, she found herself taking on a case that could change the course of history, both for her career and for the larger fight for equality. The case was a high-stakes lawsuit involving a large corporation that had systematically discriminated against black employees in hiring and promotions. Vanessa had spent months gathering evidence, interviewing witnesses, and preparing her arguments. She knew the stakes were high, not only for her client, but for every individual who had suffered under the system of institutionalized racism. However, the real battle lay in the courtroom. The judge presiding over the case, Judge Gregory Westbrook, was notorious for his racially biased rulings. His reputation for dismissing cases involving discrimination, particularly when it involved a black plaintiff, had left many wondering if he was fit to serve as a judge at all. The news had even spread that he might have personal ties to the corporation, which made the case all the more complicated on the first day of the trial. As Vanessa stepped into the courtroom, a chilling silence hung in the air. The judge, a stern white man in his late 50s with a reputation for prejudice, barely acknowledged her as she entered. His gavel struck, and the proceedings began with his usual dismissiveness, questioning Vanessa's every move and challenging her arguments with overtly condescending remarks. Despite the judge's antagonism, Vanessa remained composed, carefully presenting her case. But as the trial progressed, it became clear that the judge was doing everything in his power to undermine her. He repeatedly cut her off, disregarded her objections, and even allowed the defense to make inflammatory remarks without consequence. Vanessa's clients, a group of brave black employees, sat in the back, watching in silent frustration as their fate seemed to hang in the balance one day. After yet another blatant dismissal of a key piece of evidence, Vanessa stood up, her voice steady but filled with an undeniable force. She addressed the judge directly, her words resonating with the weight of history itself. "Your Honor, I respect the law, but I will not stand by and allow it to be used as a tool for injustice. You are not here to silence the truth, and I will not let you reduce this trial to a farce." There was a hushed murmur in the courtroom. The tension in the room had reached a boiling point, and even the jury seemed to shift in their seats, uncertain of how the judge would respond. Judge Westbrook sneered. "You dare question me?" Counselor Vanessa stood tall, undeterred. "I do not question you, Your Honor. I challenge you. The law is not about who holds power. It is about justice, and justice is blind to race, to status, to privilege." The courtroom seemed to hold its breath. Her words were sharp and piercing, echoing through the walls, leaving no room for doubt about the integrity of her mission. For the first time in the trial, the judge's expression faltered, his fade cracking ever so slightly. The following days were a battle of wills, with Vanessa unwavering in her pursuit of justice. But it wasn't until the final argument that the tide truly shifted. In her closing statement, she spoke not just for her clients, but for every individual who had been oppressed by a broken system. "This case is not just about one corporation or one judge," she said. "It's about the countless voices silenced by those in power, those who refuse to acknowledge their privilege." It's time for that to end. As Vanessa finished, there was a moment of silence before the jury filed out to deliberate. In that pause, something remarkable happened. The gallery, which had been eerily quiet for most of the trial, erupted into a standing ovation. One by one, her supporters, lawyers, activists, and even members of the jury rose to their feet, their applause ringing throughout the courtroom. The power of her words had not only reached the jury, but the entire room. The verdict came down just hours later. The jury found in favor of Vanessa's clients, awarding them millions in damages and requiring the corporation to overhaul its discriminatory practices. As the judge reluctantly read the decision, his voice was less certain than before, as though he knew that the power of truth had prevailed. In the aftermath, Vanessa's victory was seen as a watershed moment. Her courage had exposed the deep flaws within the justice system and had ignited a conversation about racism that could no longer be ignored. The courtroom, once a space where injustice seemed to reign, had become a symbol of change, a